Welcome to Second Time Lucky. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Mahi.
And we will be your hosts. Throughout this podcast, we will discuss transplants, the process of organ donation, and the ins and outs of my personal heart transplant experience.
Just a heads up, some of the content might be a bit triggering. While we aim to keep things quite fun, mortality and medical procedures are discussed throughout the series. Also, a coarse language warning because we have a tendency to swear like sailors. Sorry!
We would also like to say that we are not medical professionals, so please do not seek any medical guidance from the Second Time Lucky podcast. But we do encourage a transplant dialogue.
We hope you enjoy listening to it as much as we enjoyed making it. Episode 2. What led to Nicole's transplant, Part 2.
I met up with my cardiologist in Melbourne, the Melbourne one, and he was kind of like, I do think that a medication change is in order, but if you're not comfortable, do it when you're home.
Yeah.
That was kind of a very big, that was a very big thing for me to say to Matt. I think I want to move home.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling like myself. I feel like my health is deteriorating. I don't want to put this responsibility on you. I think it's time to move home. I kind of took that as like, I love you, but like, I think it's best that I move. And he was kind of like, all right, when are we leaving? Like,
oh my God.
I'm coming. Let's do it. I'm packing my stuff. Let's go. He's just the best.
He is the bloody best.
He really is. So, within months, we had moved home. I was really lucky that we lived in one of my dad's rental properties, which is very, 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 maybe too close to my parents' house.
An appropriate Greek distance from your parents'
house.
Yes.
So like a 2-minute drive, a 10-minute walk, if that. My dad very conveniently rides his bike past our house still every single night. Like, it's just the best. But at the time, I needed them, so that was very handy. So yeah, cut to a couple of months, I moved home with Matt. And yeah, my health was just very, 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 very bad. When I say bad, I mean like my defibrillator was shocking me at this point almost weekly. I was literally just, being in an ambulance was more common than me being in a car. Like, it was just, I was calling the ambulance every time. My anxiety was heightened, like maximum level, like even worse than it was before I moved to Melbourne.
Yeah.
Honestly, just ridiculous. It changed Matt's life, it changed my life, it changed everyone around me's life. It just was not fair to any of us. Like, it was just too hard. Me and Matt also had some very serious conversations where I tried to break up with him multiple times just because I felt so guilty.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, yeah, get that out of your system, piss off, let's just keep doing what we're doing, like, enough. So it was good to know that I kind of had someone there unconditionally that wasn't, genetically needed to be there. So that was nice knowing that he was there, He had my back 100%. But it was very, very hard. And my doctors literally said to me, like, you can't be left alone anymore. So you're going to have full-time care. Yeah, it was very, very hard.
And you would have been like 27 at the
I
stage?
was 27.
Yeah.
And soon after that, I went into cardiac arrest again, this time with my defibrillator, which is, of course, very, very rare. My defibrillator just honestly couldn't keep up with my body, and I went into cardiac arrest again.
And Matt was home, right?
Matt was home.
Waiting for it to go off.
So, yes, so I said to Matt, so I had like 10 seconds or so before my defibrillator would shock me that I knew, and I would sit down or lay down wherever I was, and I would kind of yell out like, my defibrillator's going to shock me, and I was kind of in a panic. So they would always get a little bit of warning. Obviously 10 seconds isn't a lot of time, but it's enough time to kind of
find a seat.
Find a seat and also like prepare myself kind of thing. So I was very lucky the night that this happened. Of course, my cousin that hasn't been to Australia since he was like 2 years old is visiting We're organising a night out. He's at my house. We're having pre-drinks. My little sister's there. Matt's there. I'm getting ready. Deja vu. Obviously, it's just not meant to be for me to go out ever.
Not meant to be a party gal.
No.
You.
The last thing I remember was I was having a piece of pizza and enjoying it, from what I remember. And then, went into cardiac arrest. And this time, my little sister, the champion that she is, gave me CPR and essentially saved my life again.
Did you die this time round?
I did.
Okay, so 2 deaths by 27.
2 deaths by 27. I feel like that's pretty impressive, right? Yeah. Not something to be proud about. But look, others are good at sport. I'm good at dying.
You missed the 27 club.
Literally, I remember I woke up in hospital and I was like, wow, the 27 club. Like, oh my God, how scary. But this time, because I knew how bad I got the first time, and I knew my anxiety was horrible, how bad I let my mental health get, I was like, I'm not letting that happen this time. I discharged myself from hospital.
I remember there was one occasion where you left secretly. Was that the occasion?
Look, I packed my bags and I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not staying in hospital and having this. I remember my parents were like, don't worry about the house, move in with us again. Matt can move in. The cat can move in because Matt and I adopted a cat. And I was like, nah, I'm not doing this. I'm going home to my boyfriend and to my cat and to my own environment. I'm not doing this. I'm not getting pushed back to where I was. I'm going to pretend this never happened. It worked. I feel like mind over matter. It actually did work.
Yeah.
I mean, I started seeing a psychologist then, which was probably very long overdue. She helped me in ways I cannot even explain.
Yeah.
She was amazing. But, now my doctor was like, absolutely you are not going to be left home alone, if there was any question. I changed my medication to something much stronger, which, oh God, the side effects. So I remember I used to take this medication at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And for like 2 hours after I would take this medication, I would actually not be able to see. So I would be like essentially blind for like 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night. Like, it was just the weirdest thing.
What medication was it?
So it was called amiodarone.
Okay.
This is kind of like a last case scenario drug.
Like, before we consider a transplant, this is what you should try.
Yeah. So like, transplant was never mentioned to me at this point.
Yeah.
If this medication works, then you might not need a transplant. If it doesn't, let's just see where we go from there.
Yeah.
And a transplant could potentially be in your cards. But I wasn't there yet. So I was put on that medication and essentially kind of sent home, or I left.
Wait, sorry, can we just go back to what was the name of the medication again?
Amiodarone.
Amiodarone.
So if you watch Grey's Anatomy, it's like treatment of grams of amiodarone. It's like every episode. Yeah.
Alright, I'll discuss more into this. I'm not going to devote to Grey's Anatomy because I hear that like once you start, you can't stop. So.
And there's like 20 seasons.
Yeah,
so,
I feel like I'll lose my life. I have a TV addiction, so I can't do that. But so okay, say that this worked. Was there suggestion that you stay on this for life, or is it like this is something that you would need to take for 3 to 6 months, and then you won't ever have any problems again?
So this medication is a absolute worst case scenario drug for a few different reasons. So a lot of people that go on this drug are essentially older.
Okay.
This medication messes with your other organs. It's very, very strong and very potent. So like, this affects your thyroid, this affects your kidneys, and this affects your liver. So they said to me, you can't be on this medication forever.
Okay.
So this medication was kind of a bridge until they figured out what my other options were.
Because they didn't want you to consider transplant.
Well, no
right
one,
away.
it was just no one really said anything about it. Like,
Okay.
I'm not going to bring it up. I don't want a bloody transplant.
Yeah.
So, like, my defibrillator obviously wasn't doing what it needed to. Obviously, it had saved my life many, many times up until this point. But that one time, it didn't.
Well, there was a number though, was it? It wasn't like 23 times it saved your life?
At that point, it was roughly about 23 or 25.
Yeah.
By the time I had my transplant, it was like up to 70 something.
Whoa.
But that's only from what I can remember.
Whoa, okay, yeah.
So, God knows the real number.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they kind of say this drug is not a lifelong, it's not even really a lifelong option.
Yeah.
This could lead to you needing a kidney transplant or something because it really just messes with your organs.
But it saves your heart?
But it puts your heart into a good rhythm.
Okay.
So it's like potentially fixing, well, not even fixing, temporarily kind of band-aiding this problem, but also ruining your body in many other ways.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, well, what are we going to do? I can't be on this medication forever. And in that time, my thyroid became overactive. So that gave me a whole other problem, so like it just wasn't doing what it needed to do. It was kind of keeping my heart symptoms at bay.
Yeah.
But my anxiety was still there. My thyroid was now, taking a beating.
Yeah.
My kidneys, I was getting my kidneys checked. I was getting my lung function checked and my liver checked regularly. Luckily, they were hanging on for dear life. They were doing okay, but like for how long?
Yeah.
So, this was April that this happened. Cut to September. So April to September was kind of touch and go. Defibrillator was shocking me. I was on Samioterin, kind of just living day to day at this point. Not doing much. Kind of just getting up, just existing.
Yeah.
Waking up, And yeah, so anyway, cut to September.
The magic month.
The magic month. Even now, when September comes around, I get like a bit of anxiety.
Understandable.
Cut to September. So my mother-in-law, Matt's mum, was meant to come to Adelaide, and Matt's two friends were going to come to Adelaide. It was like grand final weekend. I don't care about football, so this didn't really affect my life. But Matt was very excited about it, and we were originally going to go to Melbourne. And I said to Matt, I'm not really feeling up to going to Melbourne for it. Maybe you go.
Yeah.
And I might just go stay with my parents while you're there. I'm just not feeling it. I just feel like I'm not into it. Something is just not quite right.
Yeah.
And I know my body by this point.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with my body. I was very adamant. I was like, I'm not going to Melbourne. I need to stay home. So Matt organised for his mum. Well, yeah, he was also very adamant about wanting to go. And at the time, I was like, I'm telling you that I'm not well. Like, I can't go. And he was like, I know, but what if we drive? What if we fly? I was like, Matt, I'm not feeling it. I can't go.
So he was adamant about you going as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we came to the conclusion that he would bring his mum over and his friends would come as well.
Okay.
And again, I was like, I don't care about football. Like,
yeah.
What's the big deal? Like, just go. So his mum was coming. I think it was like I want to say like a Thursday or something. And I remember I went to hospital like on the Wednesday or something. I didn't stay there overnight. Just another one of my little quick trips. My heart was being funny, and I just went for peace of mind. Came home, and I was like, Matt, I really need to have a shower. Your mum's coming tonight. Can you just maybe come sit in the bathroom with me while I shower because I'm not feeling very well? So just come stay with me while I have a shower. So I went into the shower, and my defibrillator, I had shampoo in my hair, by the way, in my big, thick, long hair, lathered up.
It's like a nest for shampoo.
I had a nest of shampoo in there. And my defibrillator shocked me in the shower. And I woke up, it shocked me again. I woke up, I ran to my bedroom, shocked me again. I was literally in and out of consciousness for about half an hour.
Alone in the house at this stage.
Matt was there.
Okay, Matt was there, yeah.
I was in and out of consciousness. My defibrillator was just shocking me non-stop. I counted that it shocked me 17 times.
Oh my god.
And also, I just want to quickly, side note, say that when you get shocked by a defibrillator, the doctors describe it as being kicked in the chest by a horse.
Okay.
So, like, the pain from having one shock is quite traumatizing. And it's also like the experience of getting shocked is scary.
Yeah.
So this was happening, like, shock, like, consistently. So, like, it wasn't even giving my body time for me to pass out. Like, I was awake.
Yeah.
Matt, I said, call my mum. This is it. Like, I'm dying today. This is it. So he called the ambulance first. And after he called the ambulance, he called my mum. I remember my mum came, and seeing the look on her face, we were both kind of like, I think this is it. Like,
oh my
this
God.
is very serious. This has not happened yet. Obviously, I've been to cardiac arrest before, but this is like constant. And I remember I was just screaming until the ambulance got there. I was like an absolute mess. There is a medication that the ambulance can give you through an IV to kind of relax your heart rate, but they could not even find a vein because I was so beside myself. I was shaking. I was like jumping up and down. I was crying hysterically. I remember like even just looking at my mum's face, the fear in her face was like very, very intense. And obviously, like when I went into cardiac arrest those 2 times, I was out. So like I didn't see anyone reacting to what had happened because I was out. It wasn't.
So when you say that your body was that just the reaction to the defibrillator, or was that like you were kind of just having this mental breakdown reaction to?
I mean both. Okay. So when the defibrillator shocks you, you do a big kind of jolt.
Yeah.
So that was happening, but also I was just beside myself.
Yeah.
I remember the paramedics were kind of like, there's nothing we can do unless you are not getting shocked and you need to be calm because we need to find a vein. And so...
And it's not worthwhile them just taking a stab?
No, yeah. I mean, okay. I was literally like kind of hands in the air wailing. Like I could not sit still. So I remember my mum, I was in my bedroom, literally still lathered up. I was naked. I had a towel around me. My mum sat on top of me.
Whoa.
I remember like I was like on my back on my bed and my mum was kind of like on top of me. So we were kind of like face to face. Her body was on top of mine, which actually was kind of comforting. You know, like the pressure of having someone on top of me actually felt calming, I guess. So like it was scary though because I was getting shocked. She was also feeling the jolt. So so they were able to find a vein. They gave me like, I guess, you know, like relaxants. And I remember I just kind of like zoned out. And they were like, we're going to take you to the hospital. They took me to the resuscitation ward. And I was like, oh man, I feel like you don't come here unless you're dying. And it was funny because as I was driving to the hospital in the ambulance, my mother-in-law's plane was landing in Adelaide. So Matt picked up his mum, brought her straight to the hospital, and I had, oh my God, IVs everywhere. They were giving me all sorts of medication. My electrolytes were totally drained from my body. I was just beside myself. My sisters at that point had come. My dad got there, my mum was there. Matt and his mum, Karen, had come. And at that point, I met this doctor who I had never met before. And he kind of came to my bedside and was like, you need a transplant. You're a ticking time bomb. Like, you can't keep living like this. You need a transplant.
Was that a moment of hope for everyone though? Because I kind of feel like everybody comes to the hospital, like, and especially the look on your mum's face, like everybody maybe thought that they were coming there to say goodbye to you.
Yeah. I very much felt like that for me.
Yeah.
I was also kind of like, I'm just going to turn my defibrillator off and let, nature take its course. I'm obviously just not meant to be here. Like,
oh my God.
Honestly, this is just ridiculous. Like, how many signs do I need? Jesus Christ. And so when the doctor came in, I was also just kind of, number one, I was medicated. Yeah. So I don't think it really hit me then. But I remember he was just kind of very blasé. I guess that's his job.
Yeah.
He's kind of desensitized to that whole thing. And he came in and was kind of like, my name is, I'm not going to mention his name.
Yeah.
But he's a transplant doctor in Adelaide. I think you need a transplant. I'm going to organise your workup and I'm going to fly you to Sydney by the end of the week. So I was put into a ward, obviously, once I was stable. And it did very much feel like it was kind of the end, because I have a very big family and they were always there. My cousins, even cousins that I don't see often, they were like at the hospital every day. Yeah. I remember my parents called a priest and he came and I was like, okay, yeah, everyone obviously, this is the end. Like, this is it. And then it was a Tuesday and the same doctor, the transplant doctor, came in and said, you're flying to Sydney tomorrow to do your workup and let's see if we can figure this out and get you a new heart, and this is potentially going to save your life and turn your life around. And so when he said that, I was kind of like, all right, let's do it. Yeah. And at that point, I was also like, nothing scares me anymore. Yeah. Like, I'm not scared of nothing. Let's do this. I'm ready. And I remember Matt brought my iPad in and he was sitting in my hospital bed with me, and I Googled like heart transplant, because I don't know anyone that's had a heart transplant. Yeah. Like, I don't know anything about transplants. So, and now that this was actually real and I was getting flown there the next day, we just literally, I remember, sat in the hospital bed, like, Googled heart transplants, and I was reading, like, very scary stuff. But I thought, as long as I'm not getting shocked by this defibrillator, I don't care. I'll risk it. Like, let's do it. And that night, Matt proposed to me, and that was obviously why he was so adamant that he wanted us to go to Melbourne that weekend, because the ring was in Melbourne.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so he had like gone to Melbourne a few months earlier and organised this ring to get made. Obviously I was in my own little world just trying to stay alive every day, so I had no idea. So that was why he was so adamant that he either wanted us to go to Melbourne or his family and friends to come to Adelaide, because he needed to get the ring. So, I mean,
that's his, because I was there when he proposed, not in the room, obviously, but there that day. So, yes. Did his mum bring the ring down?
His mum or his friends actually brought the ring down. But the hospital, like I said, was just full of visitors from morning till night every day. Yeah. And so I had no idea. He had this ring in his pocket every single day and was just trying to find the right moment. And my family were just always killing it. So I remember my mum, it was just like, I think it was the day before I went. So I think it was like a Tuesday afternoon, and it was also my little sister's birthday. And it was just my mum. Obviously everyone else was at work, and my mum and Matt were the only ones at the hospital. And my mum and Matt kind of gave this weird little like look to each other, and I obviously was in my own little world. I didn't know what that was. Yeah. And Mum was like, I am going to go to the cafeteria.
Your mum was the worst liar.
She honestly is just the worst liar. I am feeling like I need a coffee, so I am going to leave you to it. I was like, all right, well, like, see you later. And Matt, I was like, can you please just crawl into the bed with me? I was like, I just want to. I call it the store, like this little area between his chest and his arm. I like nestle into that little area, and that's like my safe space.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just need to go into the store. Open up. I'm coming in. And I closed my eyes because I sleep best when I'm in the store.
Yeah.
And I was like ready for a nap. Like, let's do this. And Matt was like, open your eyes. And I was like, no, fuck off. Like, I'm tired. Like, what? And he was like, can you please open your eye? Open them. And I was like, what? And he had this ring box there, and he didn't even say anything. He was just kind of like, just the look.
Yeah.
And I told him, mind my language, I told him to get fucked. I was like, what? Get fucked? What do you mean? And he was like, are you going to open it? Are you going to open the box? And I was like, what? Like, I was so, like, number one, exhausted. I was out of it. I was flying to Sydney the next day to get this bloody workup for this transplant that I didn't even know if I wanted, and like honestly my brain was just in a million places at once.
I don't need jewelry right now.
Yeah, like why buy me jewelry? And I opened it and it was just the most beautiful ring I've ever seen in my whole entire life.
It is bloody stunning.
I know. And he asked me to marry him, and then, like I said, just random family members were coming in and out. This auntie that I never see walked in mid-proposal, and she was like, hey, Nick, with like, you know, flowers and stuff, and I was like, we're actually kind of in the middle of something. Meanwhile, Matt was like, with this ring box open, waiting for me to say yes, and she was like, oh my god, shit, I'm gonna leave. And I was like,
I love that it's an auntie that you don't ever see.
It wasn't even a close
there at the moment. It wasn't even like your mom. Like.
No. But I was like, no, don't worry about it, just come in. So she came in and was kind of there for our proposal, which was super random and weird, but kind of it's just my life. Like, that's just such a thing that would happen to us. And yeah, so like we got engaged in the hospital, in the cardiac ward to be specific.
We should become like a second home.
I said, I think we deserve a plaque for this room, but no one was keen, unfortunately. I'm going to really fight for that. But yeah, then Matt messaged my mum like, it's done. Like, you just murdered me or something. And then she came to the room and my random auntie was there, and like, so it was so nice. And then I remember you came and like with some other friends, and I was like, guys, I'm engaged. And you were like, bullshit. Like, no, you're not. It was a very, very nice day, but it was always kind of like in the back of my mind, like, okay, I'm going to Sydney tomorrow and I don't even know what's going to happen. And the next day, so Matt actually stayed in the hospital with me. I made him sleep in the hospital bed with me, and the nurses would come in and be like, can he maybe sleep on the day bed? And I was like, we just got engaged 5 minutes ago. No. And it's like, yeah, what a time. But anyway, so the next morning I flew to Sydney on a private jet, mind you.
It was a hospital jet, right?
It was a hospital jet. So like one of those like flying doctors jets.
Are they just like a bed in a plane?
So there's a bed in there. But mate, I was on cloud 9. Number one, I just got engaged like 10 hours earlier.
Yeah.
But also, like, I was in a private jet. They gave me Subway. Like, I was living my best life. So at that point, I didn't feel like I wanted to lay down. So we were escorted by, like, there was one doctor, there was one paramedic and one nurse that accompanied us in the flight. I was still connected to heart monitors and blood pressure machines and all that kind of stuff. And we flew to Sydney. My mum came with me, obviously.
And then just to be clear, this wasn't you getting a transplant. This was assessing if you can have a transplant.
Yeah. So this was called the workup process. So this is when I flew to Sydney. I was there for 10 days, and they, again, assessed to see whether I was even eligible for a transplant. So obviously there's criteria that you need to fulfill, and if you don't meet that criteria, sorry, you can go home and just live the way you're living and see what happens.
Sounds splendid.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's going so well.
Yeah. So in my mind, I was probably like, knowing my luck, I'm not even going to be eligible for this bloody transplant. So what's the point?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I flew to Sydney, was in this hospital that I'd never been to before, doctors that I'd never met, you know, nurses that I didn't know. Only my mum was there. She wasn't even allowed to stay with me overnight. So I was alone and getting pocked and prodded and poked, and like, it was honestly just very, very scary.
Yeah. Especially like that you're going through all this only to maybe not even hear any answers.
And that was kind of my thing. Like, this better be worth it. Like, this better end in me being eligible for a transplant. Otherwise, this is traumatic.
Or
like,
answers, at least.
Like, yeah, exactly. At least to know, because like I said earlier, I had long QT syndrome, but that wasn't even a definite.
Yeah.
So even I thought my best case scenario would be to be eligible for transplant, but I at least want to be, you know, given medication that could treat me properly, or like to get off this amiodarone medication that is, you know, essentially ruining my insides. You know, like, at least make this trip worthwhile. So I was there for 10 days. Like I said, test after test. You have to do psychology tests to see if you're mentally prepared for a transplant, and physical tests, you know, just blood tests, just, oh, you name it, I did it. I was black and blue by the end.
Yeah. Bruised
everywhere. Also just like emotionally just thrashed, just exhausted. A highlight of my trip though was that this was at St. Vincent's Hospital in Sydney, in Darlinghurst. That is a transplant hospital. So I made so many friends who were in the same boat as me.
Yeah.
So,
and around your age as well.
And around my age.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like I'm this loner from Adelaide who doesn't know anyone that's had a heart transplant before and I'm in this by myself. It was like I finally had people that I could talk to and cry to, and they would actually understand my pain.
Yeah.
Not like, obviously my family and my friends and Matt were amazing, but like, unless you go through something so traumatic like this, it's really hard to understand, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's something that, like, I, like, personally always struggled with was that, like, you know, in order for me to try and understand your situation better, I had to ask a million one questions. And, like, I could even tell, like, when I would ask questions that, like, you're not maybe always in the headspace to answer them. And it was, like, this, like, we're both in this situation of, like, we want to connect more on this, but, like, we're coming from different areas. You know? So like I like, you know, I could be there as a friend that has been in your life for a while, but I could never be there as someone that could relate to what you're going through.
But I mean, don't get me wrong, that support that I was getting from everyone was amazing. And like, nothing short of amazing. Like, you guys and my family were just beyond, but the support that I got from these people was different.
That understanding.
That understanding was what I needed, because also, like, I would say, like, I'm having such a bad day, blah, 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 and everyone would be great, but these people were like, oh my God, yeah, that's because of this, or like, oh God, I know, how bad was that, you know, the right heart catheter, you know, like, all these things that people did not understand.
Yeah, it's a different language.
It is a different language, and even to me, because I was very new to this whole transplant world too, so like, I learned more from these people than I did from the doctors.
Yeah.
Also, doctors are busy. They don't have time to sit down and tell you every single thing about every single thing. So I would have, you know, I'd have a biopsy, and then I'd come back and be like, they'd be like, what did you just have done? I'm like, I don't bloody know. They went through my neck and they did this, and they're like, okay, so that's a biopsy. So, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. You know, like, and also doctors talk to you in doctor language.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. So, like, these people were able to tell me in a language that I finally understood. It was like I finally met my people. Like, and
it's a new culture.
Of course. And I loved that. And from the day one where I didn't know anyone and I was really scared and I was angry that I had to be there and like felt so distant from everybody that I loved. Everyone was home and living normal lives, and I was by myself there, and, my poor mum had to be with me alone. To the 10th day, I didn't want to leave because I made these relationships with people that I loved, and they got me, and we, it's like I knew these people my whole life. And so that was just so bloody helpful. Like, I love them so much. Like, I will never forget it. I will never forget those relationships that I formed then.
Yeah. And we are going to go into that more as well. Like, we're going to have, specific episodes just devoted to that. Okay, so, so at this stage you did this, and this is where you're going to learn that you had the transplant. And we're going to go into, proper detail as to, everything that revolves around transplant, including, what is the workup and, what are the criteria that you need to meet.
Yeah.
But how long did it take from the workup
Mm-hmm.
to finding out that you're actually eligible? Was it while you were there in Sydney?
It was while I was there. So I found out that I was eligible on day 9.
Okay, yeah. So, but you were already committed to being there for 10 days.
I didn't, it was kind of like a day-to-day thing.
Okay, yeah.
So
that's, nerve-wracking.
It was, because also, I would talk to my siblings and Matt or people, my family would call me and be like, when are you coming home? And I actually was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I didn't have tickets booked because also the hospital organised all that stuff.
Yeah.
So they were kind of like, the social worker was great, and she was kind of like, when we find out that you're eligible or not, I'll book you a ticket home. So, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was going to be there for a month, a year, God knows.
Jesus.
So, day 9, I remember I just did, a psych evaluation.
Okay.
So I had, a psychologist come up to me, ask me how I was handling things, and I think they just kind of test the waters to see if you will be able to handle a transplant mentally.
Yeah, okay.
I luckily passed that. It was actually funny because me and him ended up just talking about him, and he had an accent, and I was like, by the way, where are you from? I love your accent. And so we had a laugh, and it was great because I became so comfortable by the end. By the 9th day, I knew everyone by name, and they were kind of walking past my room like, hey Nick, how you doing? Are you eligible yet? I'm like, no, not yet. Don't know when that's gonna happen. So it was really cool. I felt like I did at the Royal Adelaide Hospital. I know that sounds really depressing, but I felt at home there. And then on day 9, the professor of the transplant team came up to me, and my dad had flown in at this point. So I had my mum and dad and myself in this meeting, and he was kind of like, I've got some news. We think you're eligible for transplant. I don't remember feeling anything. I was just kind of like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Now what? He was like, how are you feeling about it? And I was like, fine. I don't know. I think you're just also desensitized by this point.
Yeah.
Nothing scared me anymore. Nothing, I don't care anymore. Whatever the answer, I'm going to be okay with it.
And I guess by that point also, words aren't enough. You need to see results anyway.
Yeah.
So it's all right, cool, transplant, but I guess we'll see where that goes when it happens.
Yeah, exactly right. He said to me, what I like to do is I like to let people sleep on it.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're keen, I guess. Obviously, he was much more professional than the way that I'm relaying this.
Yeah.
But,
he was keen for a transplant?
Yeah, you keen? If you're keen, let's go in now. He was like, talk to your family and your fiancé, and I'll come back tomorrow and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
I called Matt and I was like, I'm eligible. What do you think I should do? And he was like, get it? I don't know. And my dad is very he brings a pad of paper and a pen to everything. So he wrote all these notes down, was Googling all night, and obviously, if you type in heart transplants in Google, it's actually quite scary. It's not exactly this is amazing, do it now type of thing. It's a very scary thing.
Yeah.
So we talked about it, and we were all very scared, and hesitant, but I don't know if hesitant's the right word. Obviously, like, reluctant, just because it's scary and it's a whole life change.
Yeah.
So, but I decided, I said to my parents and to Matt, this is the way that I think about it. I don't want to keep living the way that I'm living.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I was suicidal by any means, but, like, I don't want to go home and know that this is my reality, and every day is kind of defibrillator shocks, hospital visits, living day to day. I'm not doing that. So if I can do something to change that, I'm going to try it. Just like, I know it doesn't compare, but like that big leap moving to Melbourne from Adelaide was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
So I thought, change isn't always bad. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So the next morning, the professor came, and this time he came and brought like 10 forms, and I had to sign every single form, and we went through all of this stuff, very morbid, depressing stuff, like 1 in 2 transplant patients will get cancer. You know, you're immunosuppressed for the rest of your life. You're going to be on meds for the rest of your life. So, like, it was very confronting. But again, I'm desensitized by this point. So I was like, just show me the dotted line and I'm going to sign it. End of story. A lot of people, like, take pictures when they're signing the form. I was like, I'm not interested. Just give me the form. Let's just do it. I signed the form and I was like, send me home. I'm ready to go home now. So I had my answer, and so I was good. Send me home. Let's do it.
Next chapter.
Exactly. I felt like I had shut a huge chapter to my life, and I was like, this gives me hope.
Yeah.
And like, even if, I know this is really depressing, but even if I don't make it to transplant, or even if I don't make it through the actual transplant surgery, at least I know that I'm brave, man.
Yeah.
Like, this is huge.
Well,
like,
I mean, no one was questioning that, that's for sure. No one was like, isn't Nicole brave? No, everybody was like,
I feel like when you're the one going through it, though, it's kind of like, you don't have a choice. It's not a point of like, oh my God, I'm being so brave. It's like, you just got to do this to survive. It's like you're on survival mode. It's not, all right, I'm going to try to be strong and put on a brave face. It's like, nah. You just do what you got to do.
Yeah. Well, your other option was just doing what you were already doing, and that wasn't working.
No.
It straight up wasn't working. So.
Exactly. So I flew home and told everybody, and the next step was just wait.
Yeah.
The doctor was kind of just like, go home, pack a bag, you know, have it by the front door, have your phone charged at all times. I'm going to call you at some point in the next God knows how long, and you're going to fly back to Sydney and you're going to get your transplant. And so that's what happened. It was actually very good timing because my sister had just given birth to my niece 2 weeks before my workup. So my sister was on maternity leave. So what we were doing while I was waiting for transplant, because again, I couldn't be left alone. So Matt was waking up in the morning, driving me to my sister's house. I was going back into bed at her house.
Yeah.
And essentially just spending time with my sister and my niece. And so, like, it was the best possible distraction.
Yeah.
You know, everyone talks about, like, the wait, you know, the waiting for the phone call, but mine actually wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Like, I was spending my day with my niece, and I was watching her grow, and I was able to be there for all of her little milestones too. So
that's like so many new lives starting at one point. Like your new life, like Marley, or your niece just being born.
Yep.
And then your sister being like having new life as
a mum.
Yeah.
So like it was good. It was hard because obviously my sister was a new mum and still trying to figure out what to do in that respect, but also she had to take care of her sister who was essentially dying, and like there was a lot of times where I made her shower me and I would have panic attacks and she would have to call the ambulance, and you know, it wasn't, you know, roses every day. It was very much, you know, I feel like I'm definitely making it sound better than it was. It was very, very hard, but we made it work, and at least if I had to go through that, I did it in the best way possible.
Yeah.
You know. And then Matt would pick me up after work, and I'd spend the night with him, and then same every day, night with him, day with her. Like we made it work, and then
we'll start the next chapter.
Yeah,
next
to
episode.
be continued.
Yeah, boom, boom. Oh, well, because we know that. Well, it always seems like it turns out great.
Does it?